Okay, 7:34. So I'm going to honor your time, Geeta, and jump right in. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm only going to do a brief introduction and then ask you to tell us all about yourself. But I want to let you know that you are one of my favorite women entrepreneurs and somebody I look up to and see as a kind of mentor and heroine of mine. And I want to tell you why. For me, you epitomize a strong woman who continually steps into a greater version of yourself. And when the chips are down and you have challenges, and I know that you have, you know, we have choices, don't we? And sometimes we sink into kind of despair and external circumstances taking over, and we can go into a bit of life's not fair and it's just too tough. Or we can just strive above all that and rise to the challenges and come out to the other side. And I have a deep passion for kind of igniting that in everybody, because I know that we are all greater than we think we are. I have seen people overcome themselves time and time again. I've seen the miraculous too many times that I know that we're more powerful than we often give ourselves credit for believing that we are. And you, for somebody, is somebody who epitomizes that. So not only have you, you know, when everything's down, just risen to the challenges, which I hope you'll tell us about, but also I absolutely love that time and time again, when you've been told for one reason or another that something isn't possible, that you have made it possible. And that's why I am in awe of you. So welcome, Geeta. Thank you for joining us. I think you are going to, well, I know you're going to inspire many of us, because we've all had some degree of challenges this year, and definitely some degree of challenges in our lives. And how do we get over those and thrive because of them? So I would love to welcome you and invite you to tell us, to start off by telling us how on earth you got to where you are. How did you get to doing what you're doing now?
Thank you so much, Sally. I'm really deeply honored to be here, and you're so incredibly inspiring as well. So it's just, I mean, after following in your footsteps is wonderful. And ladies, everyone else, good evening, good morning. Nice to be with you. I like all good Indian girls, I was offered doctor, lawyer, accountant, marriage or death, I think it was, can't quite remember, but really close. And I thought, ooh, no blood, no numbers. Tried marriage, really wasn't very good at it. And so I went with words and I became a lawyer. And I was a lawyer for a very long time. And my first son was, my first child was allergic to his vaccinations. And he developed, you know, in this country, we have vaccinations at 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months. And for every vaccination, he developed a bit more eczema, a bit more asthma, and became anaphylactic at the end of it. So what we should have done with him was waited till he was older before we vaccinated him. But we didn't really know very much about it in those days. And so he became anaphylactic, and he got worse and worse and worse, and spent about 200 of his days of his first year in hospital, and got cardiorespiratory arrest, died, was resuscitated, spent a week in intensive care, which can really focus the bloody mind, let me tell you. Does kind of really, really make you kind of, and I was so young, you know, I was in my 20s and I had no idea. And yeah, so then I came out, made him better, and then I took that knowledge and used it to set up Nosh Detox, because it was the one thing I knew how to do. I can do anything to anyone's body, and that was what I knew to do. So I used that to make the money to pay my children's bills, kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you for that. So you make it sound quite easy there. But I know that in there, throw in a divorce, throw in the fact that you're spending a lot of time in hospital with your little one, throw in the fact that you've had to quit your job as a very well successful, lucrative corporate lawyer.
Yeah.
So you're fending for a family of three children at this stage.
Yeah.
How do you manage all of that and sustain yourself? What lessons did you learn at that point? And I suppose I'm really interested in, at that stage of your life, because you built your hugely successful business, which I'd love you to tell us more about now, but your hugely successful business off the back of kind of a crisis. And I'm really interested to know whether you took each day at a time in those days, because we all know young children, busy lives, it seems like you're just in the thick of it and you can almost not rise above the day. Were you so ingrained in the day that it just kind of happened day after day after day? Or did you have a bigger vision? At what point did this survival turn into kind of, I could have a thriving business out of this?
I never thought of it like that. I thought of it like, you will all know, the ones that are mothers, and when you're poor with children, it's absolutely brutal. And we were very poor. We'd gone from being very wealthy. I was brought up extremely wealthy, and I'd gone from there to being in a place where when you have major crises, and it's happening this year again and again in pandemic land, but it turns people against each other. And so I lost my marriage, I lost my family, and not lost as in just, I became isolated. And that's what crises do, they isolate you, and that's the problem. And I look back now and I think I was so lucky, because I had certain overriding, I had one thing that I was never going to change. My children were not going to suffer because I had made certain choices. So once I decided that, everything else became a lot. And like most women, I put myself at the end of that queue because, what the hell. And so that was my first thing. My second thing was that I was never going to take money from anyone else. I was never going to get married to support the kids. I was never going to take money from, it had to come from me so that I could decide how to spend it. I had those two things. And I don't know if you know, but private school in this country is an absolute mare. It's awful. It's so expensive. There were 3 of them. So God knows why I did it. But it was some bloody mindedness in myself that decided this. Oh, I know what it was. I remember my ex saying to me, if you just come back, this would all be easy. And I thought, sod you and the horse you rode in on, you twit, and decided to go and do it myself. So that bloody mindedness came in. And so I think that when you have one overwhelming strategy, everything else tries to fall into place. But, so that started there. I then said, this is never happening to me again. I'm never going to be this helpless. I'm never going to be this lost. I'm never going to be so alone. So that was step 2. Step 3 was, so who the heck's going to help me? If no one human's going to help me, maybe there's something universal that will help me. And that was the start of a journey of trying to find the universal flow and position myself in it to have the best possible outcome. And I say a lot, I always say this, but I had a book. And in the book, we had days where we had 14 pounds and we were trying to feed 4 of us on 14 pounds. And it was just, I felt like a beggar. But I didn't want to be one. And you're having to lie to the kids. And I drew a line in the middle of this page, and on the left-hand side, I wrote things I have to do today. The list was very short. And on the other side, I wrote things the universe is going to do for me today. And that was this incredibly long list. And that was, make money for food, work out how to buy shoes, how to, anything, actually. I didn't have a Christmas present for 7 years because just wasn't there, was it? I mean, I was never, and so it just meant that I had to depend on I think the only thing I can say is I had these bigger overreaching concepts, and I relied on them 100%. And I didn't budge, and no became a conversation. It never became it was never the end of something. It was the start of a conversation.
I love that. I love that. And so you had these overriding values that I'm guessing you'd always been there. You'd always been that kind of person that was determined, and you made these decisions. That's not going to happen again. When you talk about finding something greater than yourself to kind of rely on, was that a moment in time that you made that decision or had that realization, or had you been brought up with that belief too?
I think I was probably, I was brought up in a very religious household, but I was Sikh. And if you know anything about Sikhism, it's like the most chilled religion in the entire world. They're kind of like, what? Really, just do good to others, be done good unto. And the only thing the religion requires is to cover your head when you go into a temple and not to smoke. So I promptly took up smoking, but always covered my head in a temple. So I had always been brought up with this sort of faith, but I couldn't find it when such bad things kept happening to me, because I couldn't turn to God and go, well, God loves me. Well, no, I'm homeless. My son died. There's no such thing. So I really struggled with that. So I had to find another version of it. I knew it existed. I knew, why does the tree always know when to flower and when to drop its leaves? Why does a tree never wake up one morning and become a cat? Why? There are rules. I knew there were rules. I just didn't know how to apply them and how to do and take the benefit of them.
So was it a bit of a leap of faith in that you know that this is true, and I'm just going to go back, I'm going to just and trust that something's got my back?
I promise you that entire, like 15 years was an entire leap of faith. Every day was like, we'll get food today. I had 2 pairs of shoes and 6 items of clothing for 2.5 years. And I used to do a lot of work on TV because it paid really well. And I had done a lot of work on TV. And they would have to find me clothes to wear because I would rock up in the same pair of shoes and the same outfit I mean, it's honestly, when you're down to I'm going to eat or I'm going to wear clothes, you just eat, because that works much better, doesn't it?
Yeah. And TV, great, they've got costumes and a cafeteria.
Yeah, no, because I'd have to run in and run back out because I'd left to sit with the kids and you're paying the kids, so that never worked. But they always had some clothes, and there was always someone that would say, here, put this on, you know, as you walked in the door. But yeah, it was humiliating. It was deeply humiliating, but that's okay. You know, humiliation never killed anyone.
No, and it's a learning, isn't it? Because as you say, it seems to have strengthened that determination in you to never be in that situation again. That's not going to happen again.
Firstly, and the second thing it taught me really well, Sally, is that your opinion of me is literally none of my business. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The only thing that matters is my opinion of me and my children. But ultimately, that's what it taught me. It literally taught me that to my very core. You can totally dislike me, and it's entirely your privilege, and you can utterly love me, and that is also your privilege. But it must be how I feel about myself. That is the guiding principle that I live through.
Amazing. So you have gone from being extremely wealthy and in a happy family to in hell, feeling alone, no money, 3 kids, one of which is critically sick. There must be moments where you're throwing your hands upwards and thinking, I can't do this. And I'm really interested in practically, what do you do in those moments? For all of the women out there who have had moments like that, and I've spoken to a lot, and I know that there's people who've had moments of going, it's all too hard, it's all too much, I'm just tapping out, I can't do this anymore. And I can imagine in those 15 years, at some point, you must have hit rock bottom and just gone, I can't. Even though you've got the faith somewhere, it's still a leap into showing me that that's, you know, you're going to look after me. So what strategies or tools did you either already have that you used, or did you learn to use? Did you develop yourself because you had to?
I was going to say, it sounds so bad when you described that. That life sounded so awful. I was like, how do you go? When you're, and I think almost every woman, this will tell you, and every mother will tell you, that you just keep going when it comes to kids, don't you? And I remember when we left when I left with the children, and we ended up sort of in this terrible place without anywhere to live and any money and anything else. And I finally, a year in, got a job, and they gave me a contract for a year. And I said, look, I'll take a pay cut, a huge pay cut, if you put your name and sign a lease on this house that I can go and live in. Because I was sleeping on the floor for a very long time with the kids. We had a room that somebody had given us. And they did that. I remember finally taking things out of storage, stuff I hadn't seen for a year, like my clothing, you know, and sitting in this house at midnight, because I could only get there at 9 o'clock when I'd finished feeding the kids and working out, you know, just not working out where they were going to be and what were the house. And all these bags and boxes were in this house. And I was pushing boxes and I couldn't move them. And I sat on one box and pushed it with my legs. You know how you do, like this? And I couldn't move them. And at that point, I sat and just wept. Yeah. I literally wept because I had reached a limit of where I was and what I could do. And I just, I was like, shit, I actually can't move these books. I can't move. I've done everything else and I can't do this. And that was really hard. What I did so for me, the body has always been everything. When you feel sick, you are unable to learn something new. When you feel sick, you are unable to have any drive or any ambition or anything like that. So for me, the focus was, it's not unusual that I set up a business about food, is it? And I systemized relentlessly my physical health because that's what I could control.
Yeah.
And so I ate impeccably the whole time. I gave up drinking for about a 10-year period because it didn't help me and I couldn't afford it to wake up feeling bad. And I walked for an hour to an hour and a half every single day just to calm myself down, because otherwise I couldn't sleep because my brain was going round and round and round and round and it was awful. So I kept myself, and I still teach this today, where everything starts with the foundation of your food and your body. And that is what I did. That is what I still do, because and there was one point where I ended up really dehydrated in hospital because I wasn't eating well or drinking water or anything. I remember thinking, if I died now, the only people looking after my children would be people I loathe. And therefore I'm not allowed to die. Therefore, what do I do to make sure that doesn't happen? And I listen to it and it all sounds really harsh, but life when you're poor and alone and isolated and afraid is very harsh. And so you need very clear, harsh, direct ideas. I needed those to give me structure to my world because I created my own structure.
Yeah, I think, yeah. And I think it does sound incredibly hard and tough. And I'm sorry if I'm making it sound,
No, I know. I look back and I think, God, that was really hard.
But I honestly think there are many women who can identify with at least part of this story of being overwhelmed, being out of control, not having the means that you need to survive in every area of your life, whether that's the clothes and the food and the rent and the job and the family. I think we've probably all been there to some degree, and it's that we all can identify with just getting a day. We can all identify with stepping up a level because of the children. But again, when you're at those points, when you've suddenly, for the first time, it sounds like forever, realized there's something you can't do, which was to push those bloody boxes. What do you do in those moments? Do you just is it a cognitive thing that I can sit here and cry for a day and then I'm going to get up?
No.
Or is it just you went to sleep and then you just kept going? Is it just to keep going? Or so you've got the children, you've got the determination, you've got the, I'm not going to die because there's no one I like here to look after my children. So that's not an option. That's not an option.
It isn't. I'll tell you, I didn't cry for a day. I didn't have time. I mean, I had to get up and get the kids to school in the morning. So I cried helplessly for about 10 minutes probably and thought, okay, then. Now, what do we do? I tell you what I do think, and what I thought then, obviously without understanding it, and what I think now consciously, because now I teach it, is that if you can't see the solution, you just need to look at it another way.
Yes.
And that's all it is. And once you sort of understand, I always thought there was a solution. I remember saying this to my daughter today, that when I go to someone and I ask them for something, I never ask them for something thinking they're going to say no. I ask them for something knowing that they want to give me what I need and want. I just have to explain it in the right way. And it is a very liberating place to be. And I got there because I had nothing and no one.
Yeah.
So I assumed that you really wanted to help me, because where does it come from that you're homeless and the only way you get paid is by going on TV? That's ridiculous, frankly, in your 2 pairs of bloody shoes. Yeah. But I just knew that these people were the best paying ways for me to get money. So I rang people I'd worked with and I was like, look, I really need work. And they were like, oh, hang on. And I think it does pay to be a nice person. I've consistently been a decent human being. And I think that that pays off, because then people are more willing to help you.
Of course.
There's always the moron that says, no, get lost, get stuffed. And you just think, yeah, whatever. And then you move on.
Yeah. Amazing. And that again is a mindset that has clearly helped you, that you've clearly had naturally, but is one that's going to serve us, because I completely agree with you with that. if you're not seeing the solution, look at it in a different way. I often think, like the Einstein quote, you can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. So again, it's that looking beyond, not being limited. And this is what I love about you. You won't allow yourself to be limited. And people and the world and circumstances and things seem to, there's a possibility that you might be restrained, that limitations are placed on you, but it's within us to decide that we're not going to be limited. I also think there's something really relevant with the timeliness of this conversation with this summit and this year that we've had, because when we're in times of stress and crisis, we go into in my world, we kind of call it the survival emotions, those emotions that come from stress. And when we're in stress, we experience more separation and division, like you were talking about at the beginning, that when we're in that place, we don't come together. There's more division and we're in competition more. We don't come together. So it's when we're in survival, we can't see the solutions because we're narrowing down our focus to survive. When the predator's coming at us, we need to be completely focused on it. So when we're feeling in crisis, we don't naturally sit back, breathe in an expanded way and have that open focus that allows us to rise above the level of consciousness we're stuck in and see a greater possibility. So I think that's such a big lesson and take-home point for us all in this, that to know that when we're in a time of crisis and we're in stress, it's more difficult to think outside of the box. But as you said, there's always a solution to a problem. In fact, lots of it is just problem solving. And I think as well, this is relevant to women, because I often have conversations with my partner who is a seasoned entrepreneur. And one of his, things I admire so much about him is that there is no challenge. He doesn't see knockdowns. He just moves up, moves along, pivots, goes to the next thing. And I admire that so much. And I do think it's a slightly more male trait than a female trait. And it's taken me a lot longer to get to a point where if somebody gives you an objection or a limitation, to be able to see it as you did, well, that's not the thing, it's just going to move around it. But
I think that the difference is, Sally, also listening to what you've just said, is that actually I just took myself very, very seriously. And I think the majority of us as women are not taught to take ourselves seriously. But I took myself incredibly seriously. I took what I was trying to do incredibly seriously. And what that did was it gave everything that I was trying to do the authority that I gave it. I made the fact that my poor health, we are just another bloody story, aren't we? Yeah. This woman and her homeless kids. But actually, no, I made us relevant because I took myself very seriously. I took the needs of my family incredibly seriously. And what your partner does there is takes his abilities very seriously. So I took the fact that I had authority and I had a level of power within me, and I fanned the flames of that. I nurtured that. And I constantly nurture that.
Yeah, that's so powerful. So again, to recognize that within you is this unlimited, in my opinion, power. Yeah. And to recognize that and to never lose sight of that, no matter how hard the circumstances, no matter how difficult the challenges. I think that what I'm hearing you say is that fire burns bright, and that power's within there, even if sometimes it's difficult to see or to get to, it's there. So it's about nurturing that first, which is so powerful. And that's a great message for our women in this community too. And also it brings us then to this nurturing of the self. So in that kind of the power within, but also now the health and the body. So what I love to tap into with your experience and your specialism is, in these times, can you give us some top tips to nurture ourselves from within, nutritionally, for the body? How do we, because as you said, when the chips are down, as mothers, we often come last down the pile. If there's food on the table, we'll serve it out and we won't eat. if we don't have time to drink, we won't drink. We had a joke in the house for about 7 years in that Sally never drinks a cup of tea because I'd make one, but it would never get drunk. So there'd be tea around the house because you don't have time to drink. So knowing that and knowing your experience and your expertise, can you give us some top tips of how to nurture ourselves, knowing that we're all challenged? What should we do? What are those inner things that we can be gifting ourselves to just the gift of health, looking after the fundamentals of our bodies?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that there's a couple of things here. Firstly, we need to all acknowledge that your primary relationship, your absolute primary relationship is with yourself. And I speak as a single parent, and I've been a single parent for the last 17 years or something. But your primary relationship that you could take care of must be with yourself, firstly. Secondly, you've got to systemize your self-care, because as a woman, as a busy woman, as a working woman, you will always inherently put yourself last. You will eat. I've walked past mangoes that are ripe thinking, but the children love mangoes. Yeah. Who hasn't done this? Yeah. Who hasn't done this? Hands up, who hasn't done this? I walk past the damn things loving mangoes because the little one really likes mangoes. And then I throw the bloody thing away the next day. Yeah. I walk past them, and we all do this. So I systemize my self-care. It is primary. My self-care goes into my calendar first. And then my meetings go in afterwards. When I'm going to work out, my meditation, all of that goes into my calendar, and I start work after that time is allocated. In terms of eating, if you don't have healthy food in the house, you're not going to eat it. It's very simple. So you need to actually set up for it to be bought and put in your house in order for you to eat it. If you're, there has to be an understanding that, in fact, there's some really basic things. I don't even know where to start. Low carb is stupid. I don't know how to say this because fiber is carbs. So you should be eating carbs and fiber. You just shouldn't eat all of it. You should hit for a tennis ball size a portion of carbs, but eat them regularly along the way. You know, fat, high fat. Fat is very, very incredibly good for you. For women, fat takes the hormones. It's the carrier system for your hormones. So if you want to balance your hormones, eat a certain amount of fat, especially as young women and perimenopausal women, because you desperately need about 40% of every single meal to be fat. You need to eat much less protein than you think. The minute you become a 23-year-old personal trainer man, please feel free to eat protein like him. When you're not, don't. Feel free to eat protein like a woman, which is around 20%. It's about half the fat you're ever going to eat. So you have an average meal. I have the best props. Only the most expensive props do for us. Have a look at this. I drew this earlier because I was trying to work out how to do it. I was like, this is what the perfect plate in my world looks like. This is what I teach all my clients, and these are CEOs, they're celebrities. This is what I teach them. Fat, fiber, protein. So 40%, 40%, 20%. This is what your plate visually. Please don't weigh it. Please don't count it. Please don't do any of those things. Just go and have sex or something instead, because it's so much more efficient than counting calories. But here, visually, this is what you need on every single plate. And the way you know you've got it right is that if you are not hungry for 3.5 hours after your meal, you have hit the right balance of food. And if you are starving within 1.5 hours, there just wasn't enough fat in that meal.
May I ask some clarifying questions? And please,
you may indeed. Does it need more props?
I'm trying not to hear chocolate, but can you clarify the fact? Are you talking?
I've got sticky toffee pudding here, my children made. So I'm the health guru.
So are we talking butter and ghee and what type of fats? And
yeah, I had to write this. I write a lot for the papers, and I had to write a whole article on potatoes and butter, which really cracked me up because there were two things I never touched. And I was like, what the heck? This stuff's so good for you. And I put them straight back in my diet. Yeah. So I
love potatoes with butter. One of my favorite things.
I am talking butter, I'm talking potatoes, I'm talking brown rice, not white, let's not be thick about it. I'm talking about more whole wheat type pasta because it's fiber rich instead of processed. I am 100% against processed food of any variety. 100%. Because processed food is, think about what's expensive for your body to break down and what's really cheap and nutritious for your body to break down. When you eat processed sugary food, your body has to divert all its resources to breaking that food down, not to make it useful, but to get it the heck out of your system. But when you eat apples or pears or, you know, carrots, your body's like, oh, thank you, God, and will use every last bit of it to literally create fuel for you. And so you want to be really, I'm really clear that the purpose of eating is primarily fuel. Secondary is the fact that it has to taste good or I'm not interested, right? But the fuel is what you're looking for. And if you took a car, a high, you know, like a Ferrari, think of yourself as a Ferrari. Don't put diesel, crappy truck diesel in a Ferrari. Yeah. Why would you put a McDonald's through your mouth? Yeah. I fail entirely to see the purpose behind it. Sticky toffee pudding. And so if you eat well 90% of the time, I don't care what you do the other 10% of the time. Yeah. Be my guest and enjoy, and don't do treats. You're a grown-up. Just enjoy the good parts and eat really well the rest of the time.
I love that. Don't eat treats, you're a grown-up. So, because a lot of us do, when we're in stress, we all have our habits that we are addicted to, be it an emotion or eating for comfort or having a glass of wine or something that's, you know, is for comfort or is for numbness. Or so I love that you say don't treat yourself. How do you reward yourself?
I do all the time. I don't understand not rewarding myself. Why the hell am I working so hard? The funniest thing I ever got told by someone was that beetroot juice is an anti-inflammatory. So it's a fantastic thing to relax your body. You know, when you get stressed, you go like this. And so when you have beetroot juice, it does this. So I thought, fantastic, and chuck vodka in it. Because I was like, there's nothing vodka can't improve. But I just do it all the time. I'm like, I really don't understand. I'm really not one of those people that if you sat next to me and watched my food, you would hate me and yourself. It's never going to happen. My food looks like food. It's good, but it is fresh. It is, I mean, I'm vegetarian and I'm like 90% vegan, but I do that because I like how it tastes. Yeah. And then the sticky toffee pudding, I'm going to have it, but I'll have one spoonful. Like it'll be a biggish spoon, to be fair. But it will, but because that's what I want to have. So I'm just very careful about the amount of it I would perhaps eat. But I never say no to something.
Yeah, amazing. And I think that's right. This is what I say to the kids as well, is that, you know, if you eat well, of course you can have a treat, but we're not having dessert or treats without having first had the basics of the foundations, because that's not going to work. Everything in balance, right?
Yes. That's why beetroot and vodka go together so well.
I'm going to try beetroot and vodka.
You should.
And Geeta said so.
Exactly. And I really hate beetroot, so vodka really makes it better.
Oh, I love beetroot. Okay, so thank you. So you've given us some mindset tips, you've given us some perseverance tips, you've given us some fantastic nutrition and health tips. I'm going to end with asking some questions that I'm going to ask all of our guest speakers because of the theme of this summit. Is this okay with you? So I'm going to ask you, how are you? The theme of our summit is reconnect, reset, rejuvenate. How are you, and with what are you going to reconnect with these holidays?
Oh my God, I have 5 children now. Okay, let's just be really clear. I have 5 children, so that's really bad for you in the first place. And then they're bloody teenagers, so that's even worse for you. Although they're lovely. I have given myself the gift of flying in my absolute best friend in the world. This girl is my sister, and we've been friends since we're teenage. And she's flying out in 4 days, and she's staying. And her father died on Christmas Eve last year. And I was like, oh no, let me treat you. And actually it's just for me. It is literally just for me. So she's coming to stay with me for a week. And yeah, and then after that, I get a lot of enjoyment out of conning every one of the children into trying to cook a meal, because I'm like, you should really do this, sweetie. It'd be really good. So messing with the children's head over the holidays is going to entertain me no end. But it's just, it's the ability to be with them, and I'm so grateful. I know it sounds awful, but I tell you, I think of myself as one of the luckiest people in the world. I'm so grateful for what I have. I've worked for all of it, but at least I have it. And I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful they speak to me and they're teenagers. I'm grateful I speak to them and they're teenagers. And my mother's 86 and she's coming round, and, you know, it's just such a blessing to be here.
Yeah.
And so I sort of, you know, and that's what it is. I speak about this because people who look like me don't look like they went through what I went through. And I do this because I want to make you feel better about your life. Because honestly, if I can go through it, anyone can go through it. So we can all come out of it. And so I just, it's going to be a lot of love and laughter, and apparently shed loads of beetroot juice.
Yes, with vodka. Well, I'm a big believer in you create your own look, and you have certainly created your life by design, which I'm in awe of you from. And, you know, within our work in the Dr. Joe Dispenza world, one of his favorite sayings is gratitude is the greatest state of receivership. So when you're in that state, it's a good state to bring other good things in, right? So yes. I just wanted to put that in because you've clearly curated it, not out of luck. So thank you. And then resetting. What are you going to be resetting these holidays?
I reset my body constantly because I look after it all the time, but I reset my goals for next year.
Yes.
And that's so for me, I have a huge big vision for next year, and I'm going to be writing that down over the Christmas and seeing how it feels, and my best friend and I can sit and look at it and laugh at it and make it and polish it, and so and then just gently nudging the kids towards that sort of thing, and just I don't really like resolutions, and I don't like kind of, you know, I like when you can just create a flow. And what is that flow? What would it look like? How would you feel? Who are you going to be the person 2021 has to give you?
Yes, that's a
so that's a really, and that's a lovely reset because you can't fail it.
Yeah,
I don't like things where I can fail. They annoy me because if I'm failing, I'm going to start get really annoyed. So just don't fail. Just who do you have to be? So I want to reset myself into who I see myself being for 2021. That's what I think this is for.
I think that is incredibly powerful, and I think that's a message we should all take, and it's one I believe in too. It's who do you need to be? Create that. Let's focus on that, and that's the work right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Final question. Rejuvenate is our theme. How are you specifically? You're rejuvenating every day. Is there something specific you're going to rejuvenate? Is there
yeah. We have in Nosh, we have a winter cleanse, and we're starting the winter cleanse on Saturday. My daughters and I are actually doing, the boys are not, weirdly. We are starting that on Saturday. And it's soups and juices. So we're going to reset. We're going to do that. And we're going to do that before Christmas. So we'll do about 3 or 4 days. And it's going to reset the body. And that will help us with the energy. And then we're going to go to the seaside. And then the sea salt water thingy. So it's always, you know, something cleansing. Yeah.
So
pray God, we hope we're going to do all that.
Yeah. Yeah, you will. You're a genius creator, quite clearly. So may I make a final request that you could possibly put into your reset goal thinking? Could you get your stuff over to Australia, please?
I would love to get my stuff. I spent so much time with Australians this year. I've had the best time. I think Australians are phenomenal. Yes, I would love to.
Fantastic, because as soon as it's here, I'm going to do your cleanse and talks too. Do you have any books out yet? Do you have any detox books?
We do have a lot of ebooks, actually. In fact, if you could, we do have an awful lot of ebooks. I'm trying to think if there's some of them on Amazon, but also if you we have some we give away. We have a lot, like info@noshdetox.com, our email. If you just email us, we will send you. We have 3-day detox ebooks and things, which are completely free. We're really happy to give them to you.
Amazing.
So just email us and we will.
Amazing. So where can people find more about you? Where's I know that you're all across all platforms, but where's the best place people can follow you, find out about you? I will be posting and sending out your details too, but for people here, where can they find you? follow.
If you want some direct kind of advice, plain speaking, our YouTube channel, Nosh Detox, is a really good place to be. Just to find out more about what we do, noshdetox.com is super helpful for that. But otherwise, I have a radio show called Activate Yourself, which is on various podcasts and stuff, talking to really fabulous, inspiring people. So there's lots of different places. Depends on if you want to hear, see, read. We're all over the place.
Yeah. Well,
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure talking with you. You have given us so much wisdom, so much practical tips. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful. I hope you have the best conference. It looks amazing.
Thank you. Well, I wish you the best Christmas,
and you, my love.
Rejuvenating, and all the very best for next year.
Thank you so much, and to you.
Thank you so much, Geeta. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Now, please also stay with us if you can, although I know it's late for you there. So, guys, we've got 15 minutes. Wasn't Geeta absolutely amazing? I'd love to encourage you to drop in the chat. So this is for your own learning too, that we know that we retain more information as if we get interactive with it. So if we write things, if we do things with the information. So I'd love to encourage you. We have 15 minutes before the amazing Lizzie is coming on. I'd love to encourage you to just write in the chat, what was your primary takeaway from Geeta? What did you hear? What was the primary thing? What's the thing that you are going to change in your life because you've just spent time listening to Geeta? What is the thing that you're going to take away from that? I would love to know. Can you drop it in the chat? Go and get a cup of tea, and we will see you back here in 10 minutes with the amazing Lizzie Chantry. Thank you, Geeta. Yeah, totally, Camilla. I am going to do the detox too. I wonder if we get maybe we can we get the ingredients and just follow you, Geeta? If we get is there an ebook or something? Yeah, okay. Let's look into it, Camilla. I'd love to.
No, totally. And we've got a Facebook group starting, so we can do, everybody can do the detoxes together no matter where you are. But yeah, absolutely. I'm really happy to give you that. I can give it to your audience. It's not a problem.
Wonderful. I guess we just have to think about, Camilla, we're in summer here, so we'll just have to attune we might have to do the reverse something.
But summer's the best time to do a detox.
Awesome. And would it be the same detox, or do you use your food?
I'm going to do the winter cleanse. In summer you would do the juice fast because that's all the juices all the way through, but I'm going to do, because it's awful, I'm going to do the soups and also because I'm not trying to do a detox, I'm kind of trying to cleanse.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do soups and juices. Yeah, I like Lizzie. Lizzie, you're in the UK. You should.
Lizzie's in England too. She's in
England,
down south with you.
Go on Nosh Detox.
Yeah, I'll have to try it. I'm so cold here and I'm writing all the time, sitting at my desk.
Yes, well, here we go. We're all going to come on with you. My family are in England. They're in the north. So we'll all be doing it together. So Camilla also says, take myself seriously. Plan health first every day before business. Yep. Guys, what else? What are your takeaways? So that was a huge one, wasn't it? Because I heard that too. Systemize your self-care, Geeta said. Systemize it. Put it in the calendar first. I remember my mum used to do this a little bit. She realized she used to block out those times in her diary, and she said that made a huge difference to her. But things like, I actually wanted to ask you, Geeta, what your self-care was. You mentioned meditation. What would be your self-care, like your morning?
It's meditation. It varies. I spread it. I have this thing called the balance sheet, which I don't know if it's on our website, but I spread it across a week. So just spread your health across the week, because if you know what kind of week you've got, if it's a heavy week or an easy week, then you know what your self-care needs to look like, because it's always going to be different. So I spread in the meditation's non-negotiable. Some kind of movement every day is non-negotiable. And then after that, it depends on what's going on. On really stressful days, like Lizzie's talking about, sitting all the time, that's yoga. On the days, and I plan the days that if I'm having alcohol, I have days on and days off in the week. And I think, okay, at the end of that day, I'm going to hate everybody, so I'm going to have a drink that night. I literally plan everything in. And then if it all kind of goes, it goes like that. But it's always planned right the way through. I plan how much fruit I'm going to eat in a day, depending on what I'm doing. I get quite granular, so then I don't have to think about it.
Wow. And that's amazingly practical advice too for us busy women, for this specific community, because a lot of people you talk to, when you ask them about their self-care or their morning routine, it's so regimented that it turns a lot of people off, because we think we wake up with kids screaming sometimes. Like there's no, where do I get this time to put me in first? You know, I'm a big, people who know me know that I do a group meditation every morning. So meditation for me is a bit of a non-negotiable, but when the kids were small, that wouldn't work. Practically, it wouldn't work. So I love that you spread it out over the week. That's much more realistic. And I love that you already are prepared that some days it's going to be easier than others. Some days it's not going to work. I love that you know, that's taken into your system into account.
Yeah, build failure in, because you know you're going to fail. I mean, and then when the kids were little, I used to have them meditate with me, because I'd be like, we're all going to sit here and see how long we can do that thing of how long can we be quiet. And then that was meditation. If that didn't work, use sound meditation, because they love to do Om and that stuff. So we use that. But you're always going to fail. Just don't make it a problem.
That's a huge one right there. Yeah, we were having a conversation with failure yesterday, and we were saying it's all about how you perceive failure, isn't it? They're actually failure. It's just working towards things. It's just learning. It's just getting to the next step.
I excel at speaking at how much I failed. Often.
But look at you now. And for those that don't know, for those that are wondering, you know, when she was talking about your celebrity people, you have Madonna and Gwyneth Paltrow as some of your clients, right?
Yeah.
So guys, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. Look at Madonna's muscles. Look at Gwyneth.
Yeah, they're really scarily well kept.
Yeah, well,
it's amazing.
Now we know that you're part of their secret weapon.
Yeah, because when they have to be naked, usually they call us, because it's really hard. They have to lose, you know, they have to be at a certain weight level for that, which is just funny.
Yeah. So
but it's their job.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. If it was your job to take off your clothes, you'd look bloody brilliant all the time too. I'm sure we all would.
It's when you said, you know, you have to, when you were in those days and you didn't have the money and you knew somebody could give you a job in the TV, that's where you went.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to leave you now, ladies. Love you lots. Have a wonderful time. Sally, thank you so much. I hope it all goes well.
All the best.
Take care.
Bye, Geeta. Bye. Oh, how amazing is she? How amazing is she? And how lucky are we to have had her? I've learned so much, and there's so much we will have to go back through, and just all the teachings and the learning she gave us there were just amazing. So again, guys, write to me, what were your biggest takeaways? Owl has said there, take yourself seriously and systemize your self-care. I love that one too, taking yourself seriously. She did, didn't she? That was a huge point. Yeah, and taking that power within us seriously too. I think that was a takeaway message to me too, that it's always there and we just have to take it seriously and nurture it and prioritize it.